In 2020, you had that epic tour, about in the middle of the year, the Tour of My House tour.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that, we came off the road, and after a couple weeks of like, this is a bummer, and everybody's canceling their tours and all this bad news, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to announce a tour. So we made this flyer and stuck it up online, and it was the Tour of My House tour, a different show every week from my house, different room of my house. And we did a show in the living room, in the kitchen, in the garage. We even did one in the bathroom. And we stood in the shower and did our songs. And we had good friends that came over. They were kind of like in our COVID bubble, so to speak. And they came over and would help us film it. It was so funny.
Welcome to episode 136 of the NRT Now podcast. I'm your host, Jake. And whether this is your first time or you've been with us for a while, just want to say thanks so much for spending some time with us here. And if you haven't already, make sure that you are subscribed, following, whatever that looks like on your favorite podcast platform, so you know when new episodes come out. Our guest for this episode is Michael Cochren of Cochren Co. And I love Cochren's music. I put it in playlists wherever I can. I love jamming out to it on Spotify. But I've got to say, there's nothing like seeing Michael Cochren play in person, Cochren Co. play in person. Just the dynamicness, there's just another level. So if you get the chance to, definitely go see Cochren. But unintentional plug aside, I've crossed paths with Cochren a few times over the past year and was just excited to be able to sit down finally and just have a conversation, connect with him, and hear a little bit more about a story. And I'm really excited to share this story with you guys. So without further ado, here we go. We're here with Cochren.
Yes.
So good to see you, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man.
This has been a long time coming. I'm glad that you didn't ditch me this time. Okay, no, Adam Agee isn't here, so he originally ditched us to go golfing in October.
Oh, okay.
He decided that he wanted to spend a night with his parents or something weird like that.
Something like that, man. Yeah, he's always trying to have family time, I guess.
Yeah, I guess
what's that guy thinking?
You were on the Newsboys tour.
Yeah.
We're going to go out golfing, and like I said, he decided to go out with his parents.
Yeah.
I mean, you were sick that day too, but
man, I was miserably sick. Yeah.
But since he's not here, then we can just blame it on him. And
yep, I love it. Blame it all on Adam.
So I got to clear the air a little bit, Michael.
Okay.
I'm not a stalker. This is my fifth show. We're at the Hits Deep Tour, recording this before the Hits Deep Tour. This is my fifth show within a year of Cochren.
Man.
So I'm going for super fan status, but I'm trying to avoid the stalker status.
I love it though. That's awesome. I mean, we never turn down support. Now I say that, but I think it's awesome when people come into multiple shows. But so you were at the Red Rocks show.
Yep, you did Red Rocks this last year.
Yeah, dream come true, absolutely. And then you came. Was it 2 Newsboys shows you were at, or 3?
So it was Hits Deep Tour last year. The tour end in April of 22 in Pittsburgh.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So that was that Red Rocks, the Newsboys. I miss Rapid City, Hills Alive. You were at Hills Alive at festival season.
Yeah.
I knew I was missing someone there. I did this last year.
Where are you from? Where are you based out of?
I'm based here in Dallas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Yeah.
But as travels had happened, I just so happened to be at spots where you guys were playing, some intentionally, some just circumstance. But yeah, I caught you guys all over the year. This is number 5 within 12 months, so
yeah,
I'm going for that super fan status. I hope I'm not crossing into stalker status.
I love it, man. Just ride the line. That's the best way to do it.
So this last year, you've just had a ton of stuff going. You came on and you made a splash to start with, and then it just seems like it's just been going crazy ever since you guys have entered the scene. I mean, like I said, we're talking like there was just 4 or 5 major shows just within last year. That's not even counting the stuff that I even got to go to.
Yeah.
And what has this last year been for you guys?
It really has been a great year of growth. I mean, when we released our first song in 2018, we couldn't really have imagined how things would play out. And of course, when 2020 happened, we were on Hits Deep Tour for our first time, and we felt this momentum and this push behind us. And then it was like, we come home for a few months. But we ended up doing the drive-in tours with Toby, and I think that helped expose us to a lot of people, because there wasn't a lot of concerts taking place at that time, so people were coming to those shows. But this past year has really been just a great opportunities. I mean, we've had a song work at radio that was cool. Ended up being top 15, and we had played a lot of great festivals. We were fortunate enough to be on a tour with Toby last spring, this same tour on the East Coast, or West Coast, I guess it was, and then Newsboys in the fall, and that was, I mean, cool. It's like being out with two incredible legacy groups like that. It's just awesome.
Were you a DC Talk fan like I was when you were growing up?
So I kind of missed that. I was born in '92. So I was a little young, but also we just didn't have, and I know DC Talk wasn't really Christian radio, but we didn't have anything like that. I was raised in a church where it was like we just shout to the Lord, and it was new, but it was 15 years old. Yeah. So it's mainly like hymns every week. And I was in upper elementary school, I think, when my mom got me a DC Talk CD. It's Free at Last. She got it at a yard sale, and I just thought it was brand new. And I listened to that all the time. I think my mom wanted me to have that because I also wanted a Nelly CD, and she thought that might be a nice alternative. So I was very late to the DC Talk game, but I'd never heard Jesus Freak until I was an adult. I just had heard the songs from Free at Last. I just liked that album.
Yeah. So we're definitely talking a generational thing here because like DC Talk or Jesus Freak was my second album.
Okay.
And I was all about DC Talk.
Yeah.
And in a not necessarily Christian school, who's your favorite band? DC Talk. And they're like, who? ZZ Top? Like,
yeah.
Like, no, DC. Do you not know who these guys are?
Yeah.
I'm at that stage where I probably talk about this way too much, but I'm not the youngest anymore. Like,
yeah,
there's some people like who just don't know the foundations of Christian music.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, y'all, come on.
Yeah. There's definitely a whole world that existed, before we come along, and in a lot of ways we're, standing on their shoulders. And as I've been in the industry more, I mean, when I first started listening to contemporary Christian music, it was Casting Crowns, it was 10th Avenue North. Those were really impactful for me. So I was like the late 2000s, early 2010s. That was like my bread and butter. But I've since then have been able to, being around Toby in this world, I've definitely deep dove into the history of DC Talk and when I saw Amy Grant get her Kennedy honors,
yep.
I went and deep dove into some of her back catalog, and there's songs that I knew listening to growing up with my mom, but I never could have told you that they were Amy Grant. So it's really cool to kind of discover that for the first time.
Man, that's so cool. There's a lot of those, even still, like, what was it? So I grew up in the Southern Gospel, listening to Southern Gospel, hymns, all that. My grandparents were a huge influence, and they loved the Gaithers. So that world was 100% my world. I'm ashamedly probably knew more of Mark Lowry's parodies of songs than I knew of some like Amy Grant's. I did not know that she had a song called Heart in Motion.
Oh.
No idea.
Yeah.
It was Mark Lowry's Mouth in Motion.
Oh, gosh.
That I knew.
That's so funny.
I probably shouldn't admit that, but oh my gosh. Like that's also I grew up in that same kind of church of, very hymn based. When choruses came around, like that was a whole novel thing, and we had to introduce like only one. Like we could have one at the beginning of service, and then we had to do the rest of them hymns.
Yeah, this was the praise chorus, and the rest was all the hymns everybody knew. Yeah.
And then when we brought drums into the church, like whoa.
The church I grew up in never had drums. It was piano and organ only. I think still is piano. That church is still piano organ only.
And the more I've listened in the Christian music space, the more that I've worked through. Like, just there's so much value in just all types of music. Yeah. In the hymns, in gospel, in pop, and all that. Yeah. Like, just when you sit back and listen to the message, not only the lyrics, but just how they impact people. Like, just growing up in a hymn-based church, it's not like, man, I'm so glad I'm free of that. I'm so glad we have this. It's like, I miss the hymns a lot of times.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it takes all kinds, right, to form a hymn is going to reach someone in a way that one of my songs can't, and one of my songs may speak to somebody in a way that a hymn can't. And I think that leaving space for all of it, that's what I love about our Christian music space. There's so many different flavors of music that get to have their day, just depending on the time of year, or even just the flow of taste of culture. Sometimes you'll have radio moments that are more rock heavy, or pop heavy, or gospel heavy, and it's cool to hear that everybody can have their taste and their sound have a place for that.
Yeah. And I know still, like, my grandparents, they couldn't care less about Christian music as it stands today.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not. I mean, they're just kind of from that completely different era.
Yeah.
I mean, my grandma still loves her Gaither tapes.
Yep.
I mean, it was VHS back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember what VHS is?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
just making sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, and that's the one thing that I love. Just as we dig something like the Hits Deep Tour here, there's so many different types of music that's going to happen tonight.
Yeah.
That you may not be the biggest fan of pop, or I don't know if there's anybody who's not a fan of Toby, but I'm sure that there's somebody out there
this
tonight.
This is not the tour for them, if there is anybody out there.
But I mean, you have Crowder that's got that Southern rock. There's just like so much that can just speak to so many people. Like I really love seeing where the CCM space has gone in the last, I don't know, I'd say 10, 15 years maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that tours like this exist and promoters are out there that are willing to say, hey, let's diversify the bill because of what that brings to the table. And I think it's really been incredible for me. We're 3 weeks into this tour, and last night was our first night here in Grand Prairie, and just the diversity of the people that came to the merch table for pictures or whatever last night. It was like beautiful. It was like there's so many different races and ethnicities and whatever coming together because we've put together a tour that's so different in the music that we're offering that it brings all these people together. And I think that Christian music is doing that so well right now in this season that there's so much diversity of sound, a diversity of background on the radio and on the Christian charts and on the playlists on Spotify and Apple Music and wherever else and Amazon. And I think that's bringing people together in really beautiful ways when you have concerts like this.
Festivals during the summer are like a huge piece of that. Now, we don't get them here in Texas because it's too dang hot.
Yeah, right.
The summer, like an outdoor festival is just...
Yeah, you could call it the Melting Fest or something.
Yeah. But that's one of the things that I love about that. And, and seeing you at Hills Alive this last year, you did a Sunday service, like kind of the Sunday morning, but just seeing the diversity that comes in. I mean, you had We Are Messengers, Jeremy Camp, and Skillet like back to back to back that day. Yeah. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. Just you never see that in a normal concert style. Like it's only at some of these kind of events that you see that somebody can truly come. Yeah. And just if you don't like the set that's happening, just wait a minute and there'll be something right behind it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with the festival season happening last year being a huge piece, what are some of your favorite memories? What are some of the awesome things that happened through the festivals last year?
Well, I mean, we loved getting to travel to places we'd never played before. We'd never played in South Dakota and played that festival. And then we got to go to Salem, I think it was Salem, Oregon, and do, I think it's called Fish Fest. And that was so awesome to play. There's nothing cooler than getting asked to travel like thousands of miles to go and play music. I mean, it's like a dream come true. Yeah.
And then we got to talk about Red Rocks. Because, I mean, Red Rocks.
Absolutely.
It's iconic. I think I was reading somewhere that it is the #1 outdoor venue in the world.
It has to be at least towards the top. I mean, it's not the biggest venue in the world, but it's so special. And the history there is unreal. I mean, the Beatles played there in '64. Yeah. Just awesome. And the tunnel from the sound booth to the stage where all the artists have signed and I mean, it's incredible history. And I'm a big music nerd too, so it's really cool to be there on that kind of like hallowed ground,
There's a little museum that is tucked back behind there as well, and you just walk through and they have nameplates of every show that's been there. Yeah. And you walk from, I think it's the first show was in like 1916, like the mid to late teens, maybe like the early 1920s, something like that. I mean, it was a long time ago. It's been there for 100 years by this point. Yeah. And just seeing the history that's gone through and just all the stuff that's gone through is just incredible. Yeah. I mean, just even in Christian music history, I mean, that's where Third Day, that was when the lights went down on Third Day for the last time. And just such an iconic, and absolutely gorgeous venue. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it was really cool to be there. We're looking forward to another opportunity to be there in the future, and it's just total dream come true for me.
But the stairs.
Yeah, man. Well, it's so high, it's like, I think it's even higher elevation than Denver. It's like 8. It's what is it? Something crazy high. It's not as high as Aspen maybe, but you feel it when you're there and you're breathing and you're like gonna die. You can feel like your little capillaries in your lungs struggling.
I decided to count the stairs going up. Okay. I think there was. Well, I stopped about 125 because I was gassed and gonna run into somebody. Yeah. But I think it's like right around 130 stairs that are almost straight up.
Yeah, it's bonkers. If you're like a normal patron and you're parking in the parking lot, like the extended parking, you're gonna walk probably a mile up elevation the entire way, and then do, I don't know, 7 flights of stairs or something crazy. It's brutal. Yeah.
So I shouldn't laugh at this. This shouldn't be funny, but it is. Like, you see some people coming in from the very lowest level, the stage level, and there's no elevators, there's no powered anything to get anywhere.
Yeah.
And people look at their tickets and look up for the first time. They've never been there. That look on their face of that dread, like,
yes,
oh no,
what have I done?
Yes.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It shouldn't be funny, but I saw that like all night long as people were walking in.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I think you can get dropped at the top if you're like ADA or whatever, but then you have to walk down the steps, and then somehow you got to get back up or something.
Well, the ADA is all front row.
Okay.
So as a photographer, that was a little bit of a challenge because the ADA is like the first 3 rows.
Okay.
So they bring you in, so there's hardly any stairs there at all.
Yeah.
So they're in, like, you can't stand up and take pictures because, people who can't stand up.
Oh, yeah, you block the view. Yeah.
So that was one of the first instructions is, stay close to the rail. But so all that ADA is like right at the front.
Yeah.
Which is awesome, like that they still have that ability to accommodate those people. But
absolutely.
For all the able-bodied people, like I said, looking in for their tickets, looking where they're at. Yeah, there's a lot of dread that happened that day.
Yeah, I bet.
A lot of dread.
Yeah, for sure.
When you step out, you were on the B stage. What is the impact when you step out on that stage? Red Rocks, the lights are coming on. Like, what is that feeling when you're like, holy crap, I'm playing Red Rocks?
Yeah, I mean, just excitement. And I mean, in the moment, you have to like look back and reflect on it, because in the moment, all I was thinking about is like, don't mess up. Don't mess up. But it was cool. It was just cool to see the influence of Christ right there in that iconic venue, and just to be able to worship with everybody. It was just really great.
So talking a little bit about the story of Cochren, your wife is on stage with you every night.
Yeah.
So this is a husband-wife. What started Cochren? What was the origin when you first came in and decided, hey, we're going to do music, we're going to do this together, and we're going to tour the world?
Yeah, well, it definitely didn't happen, all at once. I had started a band out of high school called Michael Cochren Band with just friends of mine in Indiana, and we had toured the Midwest and anywhere that would let us play there for a few years, and we basically built up our recognition to where if someone like Crowder or something was coming through the area, the promoter would put us on the show as like an opener or whatever, that maybe just as an opportunity for us and for them or whatever. We did that for a little while, and I met management. They brought me to Nashville, and so coming from Indiana to Nashville was unreal, and meeting with record labels and all the things. But my wife and I got married in the middle of all of that in 2015, and she was a musician in her own right and was doing something with the college band that she was in. That was like an ambassador's band for this Christian college. And when we got married, I was like, hey, do you want to come to this show and play keyboard for this show, just one show, And it was so fun that she played with us. I was like, do you just want to keep playing with us? And she loved it, and I loved it. And so we did that a lot. It was a lot of weekend warrior stuff back then. She taught school for 6 years, elementary music. And so she couldn't tour with us all the time, but most of the time she was with us. And then when I signed a record deal, and you're doing those first big, large-scale tours, typically it's like we have one bunk for you on the bus, so you're going to come solo and play solo or whatever. So I did that for a couple of years, and she couldn't be with me. But in 2020, we prayed about it, and she took an extended leave from her job, and she toured with me full-time on that tour. Well, then it was cut short. She was planning on leaving her teaching position that year. She had never toured heavily like that, so we wanted to see what the road's not for everybody,
No.
She loved it. It was great. So we were going to jump off in faith, and she's going to leave her job with her government insurance. And then the pandemic happened, and so we were like, well, why don't you keep that regular job with the regular paycheck and the regular insurance for another year? And so then in 2021, she left that position, and we've been touring full-time together ever since, and she's a huge part of the band, and it's been great.
In 2020, you had that epic tour, about in the middle of the year, the Tour of My House tour.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that, we came off the road, and after a couple weeks of, like, this is a bummer, and everybody's canceling their tours and all this bad news. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to announce a tour. So we made this flyer and stuck it up online, and it was a tour of my house tour, a different show every week from my house, different room of my house. And we did a show in the living room, in the kitchen, in the garage. We even did one in the bathroom. And we stood in the shower and did our songs. And we had good friends that came over. They were kind of like in our COVID bubble, so to speak. And they came over and would help us film it. It was so funny. Trying to get like 2 or 3 phones to live stream to YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram all at the same time. What a mess. But people still talk about those concerts. So we see people out on these shows across the country, and they're like, hey, we watched you during COVID, and we really appreciate it. So it's kind of neat, you know.
The most epic tour you've done so far.
Yeah, maybe. Most talked about, for sure. You know, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about this album that just came out.
Yeah.
Running Home, an amazing album. I got a quick pre-listen to it, and it was like, oh, wow. Like, man, this is going to be something. I mean, man, Running Home came out early. Yes. I mean, that's taken everything by storm. What has gone into this album? What is the life that's gone into this album? And through, you know, all the lessons that you've learned over the past couple of years as you've really started just launching off from the 2020 side, what's all gone into this album?
I mean, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Yeah. I mean, we released our debut record in 21 in the spring, and that was really a culmination of the first 10 years of my musical life. I mean, just a lot of songs and stories, and really finding my voice and how I wanted people to hear me for the first time in the industry and what I wanted to say. You know, this project, Running Home, was really, you know, I describe it kind of like if the first album is figuring out how to build the boat and launch off the beach, this album is more like, okay, the wind's in the sails and we're on the ocean and we're headed where we want to go. We just had a clear direction. We had a clear heading with this album. I knew what I wanted to say. I knew what I wanted it to sound like. I knew I wanted my influences, my musical influences, to bleed into it more, and I wanted it to be a broader sonic experience for people, and I think that we were able to capture that.
What was the hardest song to write and record on this album? Whether it be the technical side, like something just wouldn't work right, or just on the emotional side, what was the hardest one to get on this album?
Oh, man. I would say Future Glory. It's a song that we just felt was special from the beginning, but, you know, I wrote it over Zoom a couple years ago with a writer. So I was in Indiana at my house, and he was in Nashville writing it. And we knew it felt special, but all we really did that day was record like a piano demo for it. That song could have gone so many different directions sonically. Me and my A&R guy, Brad, at Goatee Records, we just had to really figure out what our vision was going to be for that song, where we wanted it to go and what it was going to sound like. And so it was hard nailing that down. But once we got the players in the room and worked with the producer, David Leonard, it really started coming to life, and we started feeling this is where we're headed, and it's just really rock and roll.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I really love about this album is that there's just a lot of good rock, pop rock in this album.
Yeah.
And coming up from a 1,000 Foot Crutch, FM Static, kind of that pop punk era.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just absolutely digging like this rock pop emergence that's kind of coming across the industry as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, you know, the pendulum swings one way or the other, and I think more recently, I think a lot of producers and artists are seeing this, or at least this desire to have real instrumentation in the music and put players back in the room together. And I think maybe part of it is just the worship culture of the time too, but just the live feeling and the musicality and seeing the value in that in this season. I think it's exciting for me because that's all I know how to do. And so the fact that people like listening to that is really great.
You know, if somebody gets done with this album, somebody listening to a whole album seems weird these days, but if somebody listens to the whole album, what do you want them to come away with? Not just sonically, but what's the message that you want them to come away with?
Yeah, I mean, well, the album title really does sum it up. I mean, to me, the album is just about the hope of returning to the arms of the Lord and just the comfort, whether it's comfort in trial, comfort in things that you're going through. I mean, there's a song on the album called Be There For You, which is more of a song, you know, kind of friend to friend or a brother to brother, just about being there for each other. And then Through the Night is just a song that deals with how to process anxiety and worry and how the Lord is our comfort and our rest in those times. And then Future Glory really is a song that points us beyond our circumstances to seeing the hope that we have. That's the eternity is waiting for us, and we know how the story ends and all of that. I think start to finish, it really is just this call to return to the comfort that God offers us.
So as we wrap up here, we got to talk about the Cochren vocals.
Okay.
Because they're absolutely incredible. Like there's, especially with all the concerts that I've been to, all the music that I've listened to, like there's still times where I just sit and go like, wow. Like you just stop and, so at this venue that we're at here, they did this song or this event called Unite. And there was just a kind of a mishmash of artists that came in. Mm-hmm. Amazing night. And there's a few times where I'm just sitting there just blown away. I'm running up and down the aisles, taking pictures, whatever. There's a couple moments, like I'm just sitting there, I'm just shaking my head like, this is ridiculous. Like I think Blanco was going.
Oh, yeah.
I really love watching the crowd's reactions, as artists are up there singing. And so that Newsboys tour in October, Adam was telling me a story about how he was talking with his parents and like, this Cochren guy's awesome, but he's sick. This is 80% Cochren. Like,
I was so sick, man. I was so sick on that. I think probably the worst experience on stage that I've had maybe ever. I just couldn't produce notes. It's never happened to me. I think I had laryngitis, honestly, because I was sick, and then my voice just was gone.
Yeah. And see, for us sitting out there, we would have never known. But where I was going to go with this is, at that festival last year, I think I had gotten backstage by that point. I wasn't out in the crowd, but you were. I can't remember if it was a karaoke part of your set where you're kind of doing some covers and all that, but everybody backstage was sitting there just going, like, what is going on out there?
That's encouraging to hear. That's
like,
cool.
I just love seeing those reactions. Like, it was, I can't describe it over a podcast, especially because I can't sing like that. So we're not even gonna. But I love the reaction of people, as they hear you for the first time. Yeah. And I'm sure like a lot of people out there, that was their first time seeing Cochren, hearing Cochren Co. Yeah. It was just hilarious for me to see. It was just so fun for me to see just the reaction when you just started letting loose and just going. Like people's minds were blown.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you. That's super encouraging.
And I'm looking forward to that tonight. During your set, I'm going to be watching everybody as you go. See how many people are just start looking up like, what is going on?
Man, that's awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me on, dude. It's great talking to you.
You too. Appreciate you taking the time here before the show.
Absolutely. Honored to you, man. It's going to be a fun night tonight.
It is.